Kuf Mem Amid Beis at the bottom of the page. That means page 280. This is the Chitas of Friday. Okay? This is the Chitas of Friday. Kuf Mem Beis at the bottom. Now, we spent, I guess, 3 shiurim explaining the idea that although Hashem is everywhere, there's differences between the way Hashem's presence is felt by Gilui, because there's different levels of Shechina, there's different levels of Islapshus of Shechina, and there's even a concept called Galus HaShechina. In the last 2 shiurim, we started speaking about people. That people also have Alakus in them, like everything else has Alakus in them, but there's enormous discrepancies, enormous differences between the way godliness is in one person, the way godliness is in a different person, and so forth. Included in that is also the idea Asher Shalat Ha'adam Ba'adam Lara Loi, the Eibush that gives a koyach for Klipa, Goyim Lahazlu, to dominate Yidden. That doesn't mean that when a guy is down in a Yidden, Rahman Latzan, the Eibush is out of control. It's part of the divine plan. There's something about that has to do with the Eibush. Because ultimately it's Lara Loi, this Goy domination of a Yid ultimately is the Lara Loi of the Goyishkeit. But the point is that the same concept of Golus and Golus HaShechina that we have in world, you have in people. And now the Alter Rebbe says, and once we've established these words in truth, Hagluyim v'yeduyim lakol, that are revealed and known to everybody, we can return to the original discussion, which was a discussion about anger, that the Rebbe brought the Zayar and the Rambam, and I guess in a certain way also the Gemara, that a person who gets angry is like an idolater, like one who worships idols. Why? Because if you recognize that Havaya Amalek Halel, meaning to say, even though that person is going to be punished for the Ebchirase, he made a bad choice. But as far as you are concerned, Havaya Amalek Halel, the Eibishter gave Chayes that allows Shimi to curse. So the Eibishter is responsible for the curse in as much as you, the cursee, is concerned. So getting angry is thinking that the Eibishter is not a balabas, and this is an Yintan Avodah Zarah, B'dakas. Okay, so Nachsel, in Yerishin, Binyan Akas, we can turn to the original point about anger. Point. Right? Why is Avodah Zarah anger like Avodah Zarah? Says Alter Rebbe B'mil Diyam, that has to do with Gashmiistic things. Why? 2 lines in the bottom of the page. Because everything that happens in the life of a person happens in the hands of heaven. In other words, Rabbi Isai, when it comes to Gashmias, we have no free will. When it comes to Gashmias, everything is Bashgacha Pratis without our free will. Both in terms of the choices we make and both of the terms that the choices people make vis-a-vis us. When it comes to Gvaram Avelam Hazen Gashmias, when we get angry, we're angry at the Eibish's Hashgacha. That's why it's even Avodah Zarah. However, as opposed to when it comes to matters of heaven, that means to say when it comes to mitzvahs and avedis, where we say Chutz Meyiras Shamayim, Hashem does not mix in. For example, La Frushim Yisur, to stop people from doing an aveda, like the Alter Rebbe Leishayach Haytaima. This reason does not apply. And the proof is from Moshe Rabbeinu himself that the Torah tells us Vayiktzef Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu got angry. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu get angry? Because he thought, or the fact was, that Yidden made a mistake. Even more than once for Yiktef Moshe. Yiktef Moshe in Pashas Shmini, about the Soed of Nachshen. You have Yiktef Moshe in Pashas Mates, about the Noshim of Midian, and so forth. Why did Moshe get angry? Because Moshe got angry about a choice that Yidden made about a matter of Yiddishkeit. And when it comes to matters of Yiddishkeit, you do have free will. And because when it comes to matters of Yiddishkeit, you do have free will, the anger should be directed at you. Right? V'hainu, mishum ki hikra Hashem, Hashem hikra the fond of mitzvah zu. Hashem, so to speak, presented him with the possibility to fulfill this mitzvah. La Furushim Yisura, to separate people from doing an Aveda, Kedela Zachese, to bring him a great Zechus. So therefore, Moshe stepped in and got angry because it was useful to get angry. Moshe Rabbeinu's anger served the purpose. Says the Rebbe, however, Moshe got angry. And Moshe Rabbeinu's anger is considered a good thing Because his anger was directed at Yidden who are Bailei Bechira when it came to matters of Yiddishkeit. Right? So the Rebbe as follows. This is only when there will be something gained by you objecting and getting angry. Beketzpe uvekase al chavere, with your wrath and anger directed towards your fellow. If you get angry, right, and you actually get someone to stop doing an avera, it becomes a very, very useful thing, and it becomes a part of Yiddishkeit. The Gemara says that when it comes to Chilul Hashem and Yechel Kavod L'Rav, there's also a bunch of halachas about the Talmud is not allowed to pass in halachas in front of a Rav. But when it comes to Lafrushim Yisura, all bets are off. There's a place of Chilul Hashem. There's no such rules. But it's only when you even have a remote possibility that your screaming is going to help. What if you know for sure it's not going to help? If you know for sure it's not going to help, then it goes into the same category as Mila di Alma. This is the Eibush testing you to see if you're going to lose it. So when you can't do anything about it. Again, for example, I would bet that here it's supposed to be Odel, a goy. Hamadaber or Valbale, Mitfilas, who's talking for the express purpose of interrupting you during prayer, which you had in Tanya Peri Chavches, the Sefer Shabbatim, chapter 28, where the guy stands next to you and harasses you just because he wants to make you nuts. And of course, the nimshal of that is our good old friend. Who's our good old friend? The Yetzer Hara, who's always standing next to us and trying to get us to do Avedas. Yeah. Im Kain, if that's the case, why would the Eibush to put you in a position where there's something that requires a machah, and you know as a matter of fact that it's a waste of time to make the machah? So why would the Eibush to put you in this position? Says the Alter Rebbe, Ein Zeis Kiyim, the only reason for this is Kedei sheyizgaber v'yisamet yisir b'tfilosi, you should strengthen yourself and exert yourself more in your prayer. Be'emek halev, with depths of heart, u'bekavana gedela kol kach, and with such great kavana, actually yishma dibure hagoy, you shouldn't hear the words of the goy at all. And when you got angry at the goy, since it's a case where there's no lafrushim yisura, this goes into the category of kol hakeyes ki levad avedazara. Why? This is hashgacha pratis. The Eibishter is interrupting you during davening, and obviously the Eibishter's intention is to make life difficult for you, so you should work even harder. The Alter Rebbe weiter. However, to reach this level, where a guy is standing opposite you and harassing you and not letting you be a yid, and you know that you can't stop him, he's just a cynic and a kerach hanoira, there's no way in the world you could get this guy to bug off, because his mitzias is a hell of a hester. So even though it's bein adam lamokim, even though it has to do with Yiddishkeit, mila dishmaya, since there's no point, there's even no possible point of getting angry at the guy, that's a raya that the Eibush is testing to see your nerve. Right? To reach this level, one needs a great and a very intense sederus. To reach a madrega where you don't get angry at a guy who bugs you, and you have this in Zal. You're sitting and learning, and you have one guy who wanders around from table to table, and he bugs Bachrim. Sometimes it bugs Bachrim because he's bored. Sometimes he bugs Bachrim because he gets a kick out of bugging. So if you can't stop him, this becomes a case of Lafrushim Yisura, where the Eibush is saying, this is a test. Because there's no point in getting angry at that guy. You have to not be mispol. I'll tell you a nice story. A Bacher who's probably 4 years older than I am, which means he's closer to 50 than to 40. I can't even call him one of my Elter Bacher. He was my the Elter. By the time I came to Yeshiva, he was already in Shlichus. But he was a Masmid, and a Chassidish Bacher, and today he's a Chassidish Yid. He was sitting in Zal, and the Rosh Hashiva came over and talked. The Rosh Hashiva didn't waste a lot of time. Able to say once or twice a week he'd wander around the base. Man, they'd stop at a table, mamish kibitz for 5 minutes and go to the next table. You go nuts. He would sit the whole day in base. Man, once or twice a week he would make a hakofah. And it was already one of those things, you knew he was going to come by and he was going to shtech you and you were going to answer him and he was going to answer you. Next. That's how they're going to say that. So he stops by this person's table. And this was a bacher who mamish didn't waste a minute of his time. And he comes, he starts talking. He's talking. So the bacher says to him, Reb Pliny, whatever his name is. His name is Rebedel. Ich will lernen. He keeps talking. Rebedel, ich will lernen. A few times. So he pushed, started crying. You know, it's a story that happened in America in this century. It's an incredible story. I mean, it's an edelkeit al derech apel al moedendike maisem. You know, you talk about a Hasidic bacher. That's what it means. He didn't get chutzpahdik. He didn't open up a mouth. He cried. Disrespect Kadanish. That was kind of time. When you know you can't help, that's a raya that this is a sign for the Meibush. The eighth, so what's the counsel? To have this arousal, to overcome this test, where someone is bothering you about the of Ruchnius, and the only reason is an Esayin. Says the Rebbe, he me'inyan za'atma from this itself. Kishayasem aliba, you'll contemplate in your heart. V'yizbein, and then think. In Yerida Sashchina Kvayacho, you think you have it bad, think about the Shechina. It's Rachmanas on you that now for 5 minutes you can't learn. Think about the Eibishter. It's Rachmanas on the Eibishter. The Shechina. He's trapped in Golus, and that just like it's a Rachmanas on you, it's a Rachmanas on the Shechina manifold, and this gives you a koyach not to be mispol. Kvayacho, so to speak. V'teirad ployim, and descended in a wondrous way, in an indescribable way. Leislabish, to manifest nitzu taharasa, spark of its light, meharasa from its light, ashri bechinas golos, which is literally entrapped and exiled b'techa klipes, in klipes derechal in general, as we discussed earlier. La'achesem, to give them life. V'ata apam, at this juncture, another aspect of alakus, you are being golos along with the clothes, the kinyan of shechina being in golos. Nitzu taharasa, a spark of its light, is mislabish bechinas golos, derech prat, is manifest in exile in a more specific, in a more local, in a more specialized way. Bedibur goy zeh hamedah bedevorim, in the words of this goy who is now speaking such words, hameval b'lim avedas adishem, which are disturbing you from serving the Eibishter. He kavanas atfilo, which is the kavanas atfilo, commissioners by Eliel. You get it? So how's the mitten davnen? And the goy is bothering you, and he's bothering you just to bother you. So you know. Your answer has to be silence, not to respond. But how are you supposed to not respond? So to think about the Golus. This is your person. Right now, the Eibishter puts you into a Golus. And you're Shalata Adam Ba'Adam L'Ra'alei. If you're not going to respond to that Goy, and that Goyishkeit, it'll be L'Ra'alei of the Goy and the Goyishkeit. And otherwise, you're losing the test of Kalakei, Skiv of Evid Ukmation is Ba'ya Le'il. We discussed earlier, Kizeli Yuma, that Eibishter made Kedusha and Klippa, and this Goy is a personal Gola, so you're a personal Tefillah. When he says Kamation is Bayal Il, I suppose he means in the Shir of the day before, but I'm not sure. And the Eitz is not to answer. It says the Rebbe V'dibur ha'elyin, Mislavish v'dibur ha'tachten v'cholu, the words of Hashem are manifest in your words when you're davening. This was the Shir of Lamed Tishrei 2 days ago, and so forth. And now that this Goy is harassing you, this is exactly the idea of Asher Shalot to Adam Adam L'Ra'alei. Eibishter gives dominance of the man of Klippa over the man Kedusha, ultimately L'Ra'alei. So understand what this means. Just like you understand the mystical concept of Golus HaShechina. When someone stops you from doing a mitzvah, that's Golus HaShechina, Nusach, Levi Yitzchak ben Shalom HaLevi. It's your own personal Golus HaShechina. That's how you should view it. And ultimately, L'Ra'alei, the Klippa is going to lose from it. The Hainu, this means, this will affect the person should have even greater kavana. Yom could leave from the greater depths of the heart. You're not going to hear the klipa whatsoever. And when you don't hear the klipa whatsoever, it's like the klipa is defeated. When you're not mispol from this goy and this goyishkeit, and you serve the Eibishter, so you conquer the goy and the goyishkeit. As they say in Yiddish, Eimol Farala. This is the hezbollah that Alter Rebbe gives of why anger is Avodah Zarah. And essentially he says two things. Merely the Alma, when it comes to Gashmis, you should never get angry because it's Hashgacha Pratis, it's not Bechira. And merely the Shmaya, if there's a point in you getting angry, then you should get angry because Hakal B'dei Shemaim Chutz M'Yirah Shemaim. But if there's no point in getting angry, that's another example of Golus. And when you're not angry, you ultimately conquer and defeat and transform the Klippa itself. So the point Alter Rebbe says is, remember what I told you in the structures of Geras HaKedesh. The Misnagdim will laugh at this Teres HaBal Shem Tov. Havai Amalei Kai, Eibishter told Shemit to curse. So we have a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is that what Shimi did is Bashgacha Pratis. And because Bashgacha Pratis, even though he is liable, that's his business. But when it comes to you, it's Bashgacha Pratis. And if when you get angry, you're not believing David is the Balabas. But then it's the deeper answer. And the deeper answer has to do with the question that Misnagdim constantly raised against Hasidim. What do you mean there's God and evil? What do you mean there's Elokus and Klippa? And the Alter Rebbe just explained 6 shiurim. 3 about Oylemis, beginning in Kuf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph, and 3 about Neshamas. It's called Golus HaShechina. Yes, it's godliness in exile. Aidim is Nagdim's Taine. So first of all, the Rebbe says like this. The choice of words of the compiler, that the Eibush Shechina is Shaira, rests in Klippa. He didn't know how to translate the words exactly. Baal Shem Tov Yiddish. Baal Shem Tov spoke dafke in Yiddish, and not in Hebrew. He should not have used the word sharsa. But what he meant to say was nislapsha, manifest. Find the goals in an exiled state. And this is the meaning of the words, ubefrat imhu goy v'chulu, especially when he's a goy, that the Elkus is in a maimed demativ of islapshus and a maimed demativ of golos. And then when you're talking not stam about a yiduz erasha, but about a goy who b'chinas golos, but yes, even a bigger golos. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe says like this: head. One concession I'll make, and the concession is that the choice of the word hashra was wrong, because the word hashra doesn't stop mean that the Eibishter is there. Hashra means Eibishter Gilui. So the choice of translation, of saying that in Klippa, in a goy who is a rosh, is hashra sashchina, he should not have used the word hashra. He should have used the word hislapshus. And of course, there's different types of hislapshus. There's hislapshus where the lavush is magala de malubash, where the garment reveals what's inside, and there's a lavush where the lavush is malam umastir on the malubash, right? In kedusha, the garment reveals what's inside. In Klippa, the garment conceals what's inside. But he should not have used the word hashra. This concession I'll make. But you can't blame down the Baal Shem Tov, because remember the Baal Shem Tov spoke in Yiddish. But the basic idea that there's a lakus and klipa is a fact, and he continues and he concludes and he says, "Ve'ein litmoya," you shouldn't wonder that only a small spark of shchina should still be called shchina. With the whole vart, the Eibush the shchinas and Golos. Do me a favor. The little chayes alaki which is in klipa is not the Eibush shchina. It's a nitzat of shchina. It says no, a nitzat of shchina is called shchina. We find that filu malach. Even a malach nikra b'shem nivra, which is a creation and not godliness. Nikra b'shem adeshem is called the Eibish's name. Pashas yedel apir sharambanik moshe kostav adikra shem avaya david aleh v'chulu chagav natuv. That means to say, if a being, even if it's only a malach, is involved in a shlichus, it's called avaya. Kosher v'chavakim is shchina. Shchina is not a malach. Shchina is a lakus. So the smallest nitzitz of a lakus, when it's involved in helping the Eibush run his world, it could be called shchina, even though it's a nitzitz of shchina. So the Alter Rebbe answers the Baal Shem Tov, the Tanya against the Baal Shem Tov, and he makes this small concession that the Tanya Hayitochan uses the word shar. Says Alter Rebbe, this I agree with. He shouldn't use the word shar. They should have used the word hislapsh. Okay.